Thank you, Christy, for the introduction, and thank you guys for joining us for this special community conversation today, where we're going to talk about my new program, Flow and Stretch. It's inspiring to see people from all around the world that are joining in on this conversation that have tuned in. And as Christy said, definitely a busy time of year for a lot of us with the holidays. I actually have a birthday coming up in 2 days, and Christmas right around the corner, and New Year's, and lots of stuff going on. Just got back from Mexico. Before that was in Bali for 5 weeks. Before that was in North Carolina and Montana. So definitely been a whirlwind, and here we are. So I thought I would start off this conversation with a story, because Flow and Stretch is really about this theme of balance. And there's a story about the Buddha, and the Buddha espoused one of his greatest teachings being this idea of the middle path. And so he would speak often about this idea of the middle path. And one afternoon, he had a student who came to him and said, I just don't understand what this philosophy around the middle path is, and I want to make sure that I can understand it so that I can incorporate that into my life. And the Buddha said, "Aren't you a musician?" And the student said, "Yeah, I am." He was surprised and taken aback that the Buddha knew this. And he said, "Well, let's go take a walk to your room, to your abode." So they took a quick walk and went to the student's room, and in the corner was an old stringed instrument, kind of like an old guitar, a vino. And so the Buddha asked permission to play the student's instrument. So the Buddha picked it up, and he started turning one of the tuning pegs, and he was making the string go tighter and tighter and tighter until it was about to snap. And the student brought that to the Buddha's attention. The Buddha said, "Oh, I see." So then he started turning the tuning peg the opposite way until the string became so loose that it was unplayable. And the student pointed that out to the Buddha. Buddha said, "Okay, I see." And then he started to find that place where the string wasn't too tight, it wasn't too loose, but it was just pitch perfect, exquisitely right. And he struck the most beautiful note that the student had ever heard. And he said, "That's the middle path. Not too sharp, not too flat, not too tight, not too loose." So I ask myself this question every time I do a create a yoga program. And I love creating these yoga programs because I get to meet a lot of you from all around the world on retreats or special events. And I would say about 90% of the people that are on Interdimension TV come to Interdimension TV, not to just kind of dabble around and do one-off classes, although that's okay. A lot of people are drawn to the platform because they really want to commit to a daily practice, and they want to be in the flow of a program that reinforces a daily practice, and a program that is thematic. So whatever the theme of the program is, they're really going to get to strengthen that and awaken that within them. And so for me, I started off by asking the question many months ago, back in the beginning of 2023. I knew I was going to do a program, but I didn't know what it was. And I was thinking about this theme of balance, just like the story of the Buddha and the stringed instrument, and how important it is, how important the idea of balance is. Because ultimately, if you could distill not just the Buddha's teachings, but many of the great philosophies, and whether that's Stoicism or the yogic philosophy, it really comes down to one of the central teachings is this idea of balance. So the balance of activity and rest, the balance of masculine energy and feminine energy, the balance of yin energy and yang energy, like we see in Taoism. Because ultimately, anything that is in balance is going to be vulnerable, it's going to be compromised, and it's going to lack potential to be as strong, as whole, and as healthy as possible. So, for example, if you look at like a tree and
Travis, you're on mute. I'm the only one who's not listening.
oh, Christy, I think anytime you mute everybody, it also mutes me as well. Just FYI. Oh, okay. Hopefully you guys can hear me now.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes.
Thumbs up. Okay. Not sure when you lost the voice, but I was speaking about this idea of balance in nature and using the metaphor of a tree. And if that tree is in balance, then inevitably a storm's going to come through and it's going to knock that tree over. If you're in a yoga pose, if you're in tree pose, vrikshasana, or airplane warrior three, and if you're not balanced on your foot or your leg in a balanced, even way, chances are you're going to fall out of that particular posture. If I live my life and I am giving out more than I am receiving, then eventually I am going to become depleted. I'm going to reach a state of burnout. So it's all about this theme of the balance of activity and rest. And so Flow and Stretch, which is a class that I've released in other programs, has been really popular. In fact, on my wedding day, I knew that morning I wanted to do a yoga practice. And the yoga practice that I chose the morning that I was going to get married was Flow and Stretch because it was so balanced. I knew I would get some flow, I would get some strength, I would get some sweat, but then I would also get to complement the power yoga with the yin yoga. And that at the end of a practice like that, that's where I feel my best. I don't feel burned out. I don't feel depleted. I feel perfectly activated and perfectly calm. My body feels good. And that's how I wanted to show up in my wedding, as good as I could feel. So it really stems down to I knew that this felt good for me in my practice and has worked well for me, and explored doing single classes with this theme of flow and stretch. And because it was so well received and so effective for people, why not create a whole entire program around this theme of flow and stretch? So in the body, we have what we could say are yang tissues, which are our muscles and the exterior of our body. And on a deeper level, we have what we could describe as our yin tissues, which are the connective tissues, the deep fascia, the tendons, the ligaments, and even the bones. And so what I've noticed observing professional athletics my whole entire life, and I've just being a guy that's grown up in this world, guys, yoga is usually much more popular with females than males. And I know for myself, the first time that I heard about yoga, I had a lot of resistance to it. I didn't think it was for me. I thought that what I wanted to do would be lifting weights or mountain biking or boxing or whatnot, running. But when I went to my first yoga class, I was blown away by how physically athletic it was. But also, there was a spiritual component and a mental component. I later would find out that what yoga provided was an activation of the six human dimensions: body, energy, mind, heart, awareness, and soul. And so I was full on into yoga practice after that. And so I started doing all this power yoga, and it wasn't until a few years after that, where I got hit by a car and injured my knee, that I then discovered yin yoga. And so in flow and stretch, it's really about taking care of both the yang tissues of the body, the muscles, the exterior of the body, and also taking care of the yin tissues, those deep tissues within the body. Because back to the professional athletic thing that I have observed was that guys would go and they would just go lift weights and their bodies would get strong and muscular. Females would also do this as well. And then that would work when they're in their 20s and 30s, but something would start to happen towards their mid to late 30s and into their 40s and their 50s and their 60s. And what would happen is that the body would actually begin to break down. It would begin to deteriorate. And so why is that? Why are these professional athletes that are supposed to be the strongest, fittest people on the planet? They say that American football players, the average lifespan is 56 years old, whereas the average human lives to be 76. So why are these really, really strong athletes living almost 2 decades less than the rest of the population? And my theory is one, there's the brain injuries, which obviously isn't good for health span. But the other component to it is the breakdown of connective tissues, because your connective tissues connect everything from the surface of your skin to the nucleus of all the trillions of cells in your body. So if that connective tissue system starts to break down, you are in trouble and you are now accelerating the aging process. So the good thing is that the yogic path, these yogis are living examples of what's possible when we achieve a state of balance physically, but also balance mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. But you also see this in other traditions. And another one of the traditions which I've spent time studying in is the Shaolin tradition. And in the Shaolin tradition, they have their Kung Fu, which is their very yang form of strong, intense physical exercise. But they complement that with Qigong. And Qigong is the much more soft, feminine style of movement and exercise. So the athlete, the professional athlete, or the person that's been running their whole life, but they haven't been doing yoga, they haven't been stretching, they haven't been taking care of themselves, they peak around that age of maybe 35, 40 years old, if they're lucky, but then they start to go downhill. Whereas the yogi and the Taoist, if you're just joining on the call, we're just going to ask you to mute your mic, please. Thank you. The yogi, the Shaolin monk, they actually start taking off when they're at that age of 40. So they're now going into the latter decades of their life. And instead of going downhill, they're taking off and they're going uphill. So we have lifespan and then we have health span. And what's emerging as a new popular way of thinking about our lives is this idea of health span. Like, we don't want to get older and not have a good quality of life. We want to get older and be able to move our body, to be able to be self-sufficient, to be able to play with our kids and our grandkids. And so that's that idea of health span. So it's all of these meditations and explorations that were going on inside of my head that then inspired this idea of creating a program called Flow and Stretch, where you never have to worry about, oh, am I going to do a strong form of yoga, power yoga, or today am I going to do yin yoga and do something soft? What I've done is I've created this program and thought about the whole entire system from a 10,000 foot perspective, how this is going to play out day to day, tried it out on myself, tried it out on other students, and have achieved obviously miraculous results from it. And so Flow and Stretch is about finding that perfect combination of power and yin yoga, activity and rest, sweat and just being, relaxing, calming, activating those 6 dimensions throughout this program: body, energy, mind, heart, awareness, and soul, by incorporating not just some of yoga, but all of yoga. So we have the physical asana, but we also do breath work, we do meditation. There's certain philosophy and stories and themes and quotes that are also interwoven into the practices, because when you guys do this program and you do a class, I don't want it to just be like, yeah, I did a yoga class and, it's pretty good. I want each class to truly, truly be a journey, to be a journey that takes you through those dimensions. So it's my hope that this program, as you move through it, which happens to be 60 days, you're doing about 45 to 60 minutes of yoga each day. So it is a commitment. It does require people that are willing to show up. If you miss days here and there, not a big deal. For everybody, it always takes longer because you're doing it for 2 months, or if you're doing a 108-day program over 3 months. So your 60 days may turn into 70 days or 80 days, and that's fine. But it is for people that are committed to really wanting to do a daily practice and to show up. So as you move through these 60 days, you're going to be moving through these classes where it's like 30 minutes power yoga and then 30 minutes yin. And the 30 minutes of power is kind of like packing in a 60-minute power yoga class and condensing it into a 30-minute class. I don't want to scare you, but I'm just going to give you a heads up that it's going to be, full tilt boogie for those first 30 minutes when you do the power. And then when we shift into the second half of the class and we do the 30 minutes of yin, it is just going to be blissful, delicious yin. And so we're doing those combos of classes. Like, for example, if you were to start on a Monday, you would do a combo class Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. Those would be 60 minutes. And then on Thursday, it's going to just be all yin yoga because we do need time to just have recovery, what we call active recovery, where your body can rest. And so on the Thursday, you would do a 45-minute yin class. And this is all laid out in the calendar. You don't have to think about what you're going to do next. You just follow it, plug and play. And then on Friday and Saturday, you're going to go back to the power formula where you're doing a mix of power yoga and yin yoga Friday, Saturday. And then on Sunday, you're going to go back to a class that's just yin yoga or a gentle yoga class, or what we call slow flow. So that's kind of the way that this is set up. And then you're going to move into your second week eventually, and those are going to eventually be repeated. So people have different opinions about programs where classes are repeated. There's only been one program where I haven't repeated classes, and that was a 30-day program called the Empowered Program. And that was where every day you're doing a different class. But we have to remember that repetition is the mother of skill, and that repetition is ultimately a very good thing. If I want to learn piano, my piano teacher is going to have me repeat scales and songs over and over and over so that I can measure my progress each time I come back around to that song or that scale. So it's the same thing when you move through a program like Flow and Stretch and you're repeating certain classes. What I want you to observe as you repeat the class for the second and the third and the fourth time is, how is your body adapting? How is your mind adapting? How are you adjusting? Because my job as the guide is to provide challenging stimuli, or what we call hermetic stress. Hermetic stress is a positive stress. Sometimes we think about stress and we say, oh, all stress is bad, all stress is negative. But in reality, we need positive stress in order to become stronger, in order to become more resilient. So when you're in a flow and stretch class and I'm having you do 5 yogi push-ups, or I'm having you do a forearm plank pose or some other challenging pose, and it's really, really hard, it's really, really tough, that's tough love. That's there to help you increase your yang energy. And then when you get to the yin portion and you're holding a deep stretch and it's really uncomfortable and you're exposing fascia in the body that's tense and tight and atrophied, and that's really, really challenging. Again, that's another form of hermetic stress. It's actually making your yin tissues more strong, more durable, more healthy, and more resilient. And this is how you create a body that becomes the fountain of youth. You have strength, but you also have suppleness. You have power, but you also have mobility. And you think about like somebody like Tom Brady, one of the great football players here in the United States. He incorporated pliability, he incorporated yin, he incorporated stretching just as much as he incorporated the weights and the more yang form of exercise. And it's my belief that that's what gave him a very long, illustrious career. So the missing link for a lot of people is this idea around mobility, because after the age of 20, every 10 years, you will lose 10% of your range of motion if you don't have a yoga practice or a stretching practice to stop that from happening. So by the time you're 60 years old, you've lost almost half of your range of motion unless you have a practice like this. So that's kind of the reason why I wanted to create this program. It's what you can expect as you move through the program. There are bonus classes. So those of you that want a little bit of extra credit, we have meditation. The meditation is energy center meditation, where you go through all the 7 energy centers, or what we call the chakras. And each energy center is connected to certain organs in the body, also connected to the elements, earth, fire, water, air, and ether, certain colors, certain affirmations, and also a certain mantra. So that's what we do in that energy center meditation. So you work at the very core and the very essence of your whole entire being. And then I've also put together a really powerful breath work practices. And this is about 15 minutes. And then the third bonus practice is a core class. So the core is also a part in the body that we want to make sure is also very, very strong, because these are your stabilizing muscles. And you'll find the stronger your core gets, the better that you are within yoga asana, the better your posture becomes. And also on an emotional level, you'll notice that your self-esteem is also stronger, because your core, which is connected to your third energy center in a deeper way, is connected to your self-esteem as well. Now, it's my suggestion, anytime somebody moves through a program, whether that's Flow and Stretch or another program, to consider a couple of things. One is like, what's your intention? Why do you want to do this program? And in the first class, we'll talk about intention. We'll talk about your vision. Some people, they want some sort of physical transformation. Maybe they want to lose several pounds, or some people want to become more flexible. Other people are looking for more mental aspects or more emotional aspects. But think about, why is it that you want to do this? And also, why is it important to you? And if you don't do this, if you don't complete this program, how would that play out? How would that play out in your career? How would that play out in your relationships? How would that play out as you get older? And when you explore that particular path, that can become very motivational to keep you persevering through the program. So there's this saying that says, motivation is what gets you started, but habit is what keeps you going. So in the beginning, we need the motivation, but eventually the motivation is like a fuel that runs out, right? And this is what we see around New Year's, where people are so revved up, so excited, they're so motivated to get back into the gym, to do the yoga program, whatever it is. And then by the end of January, 70% of people have completely lost their commitment to their path. So the habit part's really, really key. Like, for example, for me in my life and where I'm at, I wake up, I don't even think about whether I'm going to do my practice or not. I'm off to our back house and I'm doing my practice. Rain, sunshine, feeling good, not feeling good, doesn't matter. It's not even up for discussion. It's so habituated at this point in my brain, my nervous system, that I just go. I'm a slave to my habitual tendencies, and it's great, because then you don't have decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is so exhausting. It's that battle between, oh, do I do this or do I not do this? Do I have the glass of wine or do I not have the glass of wine? Do I show up and do the yoga or do I not do the yoga? As much as you can eliminate decision fatigue out of your life, the more that you can free up bandwidth to have the energy to do what you know is important for you. So know why you're doing this, have the motivation, and ultimately just get habituated where you don't even have to think about it. You just do it. And then you'll start to see all the amazing results from showing up for a daily yoga practice. By the way, sometimes people ask me, they say, Travis, how do I know if my yoga practice is really working? And I tell them, I say, stop doing your yoga for 6 months and see what happens. And this is how you'll know how important your yoga practice is, because you'll start to notice that your body starts to go downhill. You start to get more snappy and more reactive to the people around you. Your mood starts to go downhill and plummet as well. And this is why your yoga practice is so important. Hopefully you won't have to go through 6 months of not doing yoga, but that's how you can really find out. As you're moving through the program, also think about nutrition. Is there anything that you're eating or drinking that maybe isn't leading to health and vitality? Some of us, that may be drinking too much caffeine. The Buddha did talk about the middle path. His program is about balance. So you don't have to eliminate it, but maybe you find your balanced proportion so that you're not tapping out your adrenals. Or is it too much sugar or too much processed foods? Think about how you want to fuel your system as you move through this. And then hopefully by the end of the 60 days, that will be habituated. So then it continues even after the program is complete. Now, lastly, you want to approach this program just like my other programs with a growth mindset. So we have the growth mindset, we have the fixed mindset. Fixed mindset doesn't want to be challenged, doesn't want to be criticized, doesn't want to step out of the known into the unknown. It wants to play it safe. And anytime we play it safe, we start to stagnate. And anytime we start to stagnate, we start to deteriorate. This is the opposite. The growth mindset is like, bring on the challenge. I'm okay with being challenged. I may not be able to do every single moment of the power yoga portion. I may even struggle with the yin portion. Some people struggle more with the yin than they do the power yoga. But I will have the growth mindset to not run away from that which challenges me, because I need the challenge in order to initiate the growth, in order to initiate the transformation. And ultimately, at the end of the day, this is like a mountain. It's a 60-day mountain. And you are going to stand at the bottom of the mountain. You're going to look up at the top of the mountain and you're going to say, one day I'm going to be there. But it's also about the journey up the mountain, and it's about you having the direct experience of what happens when you show up for your yoga practice. Because when you show up for your yoga practice, you are showing up for your life, because yoga is life and life is yoga. So there's a guy who moved to a new town, and next to the town was a huge mountain, about 10,000 feet, 3,000 meters or so in height. And he always daydreamed about climbing this mountain. And after a couple of weeks, he finally summoned the courage to go do it. And he starts walking around the base of the mountain. He says, before I climb the mountain, I'm just going to go find somebody who's coming down and see if it's worth the climb. So he finds a traveler coming down, and the traveler is exhausted and dirty and haggard looking. And he asks them what the climb was like. And the traveler said, the climb was the hardest thing I've ever done, but the view at the top is the best view I've ever seen. And he describes how amazing it is all the way there at the top. And so this guy, he thinks, let me go talk to a couple other people before I actually go do the climb. So he repeats this process. Same thing happens. The climb is hard. The view's amazing. People tell him all about the view. And after talking to 3 or 4 people, he says to himself, I've already heard what the view is like. I know how hard it is. I'm just gonna go home and not do the climb. And this is what a lot of people unfortunately do in their life. They want to hear about what it's like to be at the top of the mountain. They want to hear what it's like to achieve the goal. They want to hear what it's like. They want to read it in a book or maybe even hear it from a yoga teacher. But at the end of the day, you have to have the experience. You have to have the direct experience because the real teacher is not me. The real teacher is experience. And it's from that teacher of experience, where you gain wisdom, you grow in knowledge, you acquire and have insights, and you activate the potential that resides inside of you. And it's the potential that can only be activated by you showing up. Nobody can make you do that. But if you can do that and you can show up and you can make it to the top of the mountain, you can have the view yourself. And that will be something that you will carry with you forever and ever and ever. And those are the moments within our life, I believe, that at the end of our life, we look back on and we're so proud of ourselves. Overcoming challenge, moving through adversity, showing up, and simply doing our best. All right, couple of things here to just announce. One, we have a new community app that Christy spearheaded. The community app is separate from the Interdimension TV app. So the community app is free. It's available iOS and Android. We already have like over 1,300 members in there. And in that app, we're going to have a special group solely for flow and stretch. So if you haven't already, download the app. It's free, and look in there for the flow and stretch group. I'll be in there posting starting January 1st, because on January 1st, we're going to launch the first official rotation of flow and stretch. Now, some of you may not want to wait till January 1. It's like, getting your present on Christmas Day and you're ready to open up the present, ready to do the class. If you feel inspired to go ahead and start, go ahead. Or if you just kind of want to dabble a little bit, do like one of each class and then join us January 1. Do whatever works for you, totally fine. But it can be very powerful to move through an official rotation where people all around the world are also enduring the struggles just like you. So that will start on January 1st. And, feel free to let us know how your journey is going as often as you feel inspired. We also, if you're not an Interdimension TV member, we also have a special right now that just started today where you can join for 30% off an annual membership with the code Flow30. So Flow30, FLOW30, Flow30. And that will give you 30% off an annual. If you're a current member already and you refer somebody to Interdimension TV, we will add 2 months to your current membership. So thank you for those referrals. If you know anybody that maybe you want to also invite to do the flow and stretch. First official rotation begins January 1. And on January 1, we're going to be doing a special live event to kick off that rotation. So that live event will happen in Los Angeles. But if you're not in Los Angeles, as most of you are not, we will also be streaming it online through all of our platforms. So that will be available via Zoom, Instagram, YouTube. It will be as many places, Facebook, as many places as we can possibly stream it. And that will be open to anybody and everybody. So online, it will be completely free. So if you know somebody, again, who you want to have them try it out, it'll be a 90-minute practice. So it'll be longer than the 60-minute version that's the video, which you'll end up, doing later on in the program. So would love to have you for that. That will be 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. So that's Los Angeles time, 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. If you're able to join us in person, we still have space. Feel free to sign up. All right, Christy, I think that that concludes my thoughts if we want to open it up to questions.